Saudi Arabia's and Pakistan SMDA is reviving the idea of Islamic NATO.
Saudi Arabia and Pakistan have signed a mutual defense pact.
Pakistani interlocutors publicly pushed the idea of an Arab Islamic task force widely framed as an Islamic NATO.
What is Islamic NATO? What are the implications of it for India and how everything changes not just in Gulf but Himalayas and beyond? The signing of sweeping strategic mutual defense agreement between Saudi Arabia and Pakistan is linking Pakistan, a nuclear state, directly with Saudi's defense. And this is a historic time when there are calls for Islamic NATO, as well as the time for this SMDA is not accidental when in Qatar strikes have happened. The signing of sweeping strategic mutual defense agreement between Pakistan and Saudi Arabia links nuclear state of Pakistan now with Saudi's defense. And this comes in the time where Israel has struck Qatar in the heart and there are calls for Islamic NATO as well. Now this action is going to cause a rejig not just in Middle East but it will have repercussions for US, China and India. Hello everyone, welcome to Vajiram and Ravi's Flash News. My name is Shubhangi Singh and today we are going to understand the layers that are involved in this SMDA between Pakistan and Saudi, because it is not just about these two countries, it is a call to reshuffle the whole global order into the new direction. So let us start with understanding that what has exactly happened and what is the significance of this timing. Is it accidental or it is based on some purpose? So when we are talking about SMDA, that is Strategic Mutual Defense Agreement, that has been signed between Pakistan and Saudi Arabia, and the most important thing is the core clause of this particular agreement that says that attack on one will be equivalent to attack on both. I hope you are able to recall that this is the core clause of NATO also in Article 5, that an attack on one country will be considered an attack on all and they will be called into a collective defense to protect the countries. So this coming together of Saudi and Pakistan is being considered a significant change which needs to be understood. Now at the very same time you have to also understand the intricate detail involved here, where it was signed by Saudi Crown Prince and from Pakistan's end it was not just the PM but also the army chief, basically signaling that this has civilian as well as army acceptance when it comes from Pakistan. So when Pakistan is getting weighted, especially in Middle East, India has to be on toes and alert and understand and also decide what way forward they want to take from here on, because this calls for some action. At the very same time, when we are talking about this particular SMDA, we have to understand just after the strikes by Israel in Qatar, Doha, we were seeing calls for Islamic NATO. So there is a proper block that is made. Egypt, Iran, Qatar, we had Iraq, Pakistan calling up for Muslim nations to come inform and protect each other. And this was very well in time when there is an outrage across the Arab capitals, especially in Middle East, because of the Israel's strike in Qatar. It was definitely against the key Hamas players, but the direct strike definitely struck some chords. So this pact which has come specifically between Saudi and Pakistan, this is not accidental, it is definitely a purpose laden, and definitely we can understand the trigger is coming from the Israel's Doha strike that has just happened. And this is what leading to push into the idea of Islamic NATO. This idea is not something novel, it has been in consideration and it is reviving the old aspiration where Muslim countries should come into a defense bloc where they will be symbolic protector, they will be custodians of Islam's holiest sites. And let me remind you, most of the important Islam's holiest sites are in Saudi Arabia. Now this can be done only with the help of a nuclear power, and Pakistan, being a nuclear state, takes that parameter off as well. Now this is the whole situation. Now let us move into the implications. First, understanding how it is going to change what is going on in Middle East. The timing of SMDA is clearly showing that there is a shift between the Gulf calculus that was present. The first thing that it brings in the question is the deterrent balance, which will change from here on. How it will change? Now, if Israel decides to attack any Arab nation, specifically when we are talking about Saudi, then Pakistan is also into the picture, and in this, some sort of deterrence because of Pakistan being a nuclear power is also at play here. Furthermore, when we are talking about another key point, that there can be a Sunni bloc momentum that can be seen in Middle East area, even though operational unity might be not possible because of the rivalry that exists because of Saudi, Iran, Qatar, UAE, Turkey versus Egypt, but this call is very strong when we are talking about Qatar, Turkey, UAE. There is a possibility that this bloc momentum could actually materialize. Furthermore, when we are talking about the regional players and the supporters that exist externally, this also changes. This moment defines a strategic point in Gulf autonomy where US's role is going to erode, and it is already eroding. Especially when the Israel strike happened in Doha, the silence that was seen from US basically implied that they had been complicit to it. And the fact that US stands as a player here, as a guardian, has completely been shot down. Now this not only erodes US role, but it leaves open space for Russia and China as players to enter. So the major important thing, that Gulf is gaining more autonomy because of the Gulf-Pakistan ties. There is less space for US and there is more space for China and Russia to enter as partners. Now coming to the nuclear factor part, the fact that Pakistan is a nuclear state definitely will give some deterrence to this whole region, but at the same time, even in the agreement, there has been no clause which talks about that there has been transfer of technology or transfer of usage of any sort, especially when we are talking about nuclear abilities. This pact is not directly signaling that there is an alliance that has been created, but it definitely gives more bargaining power to Gulf. And the most important part, that Israel's calculus has been thrown off track and it would be difficult for Israel to navigate in the given situations. Now that we have understood two things, first what has happened, how it is going to impact Middle East, coming to the main point herein, now how it is going to impact India and what India should do in the given situation. So first, when we are talking about implications, we need to understand the security and military implications in this particular scenario. So when Pakistan ever gets support of any power, it emboldens the stance that Pakistan takes. Be it the recent visit of Asim Munir and talk about how they are a nuclear state and sending in random threats, that is a signal that how Pakistan gets emboldened very easily. So this will embolden Pakistan in this scenario. That means it is going to affect India's borders, India's counter-terrorism efforts, India's water treaty disputes and whatnot. This is when Pakistan, whenever it finds a partner, a side to lean on, this is what Pakistan does and India can expect that. Second thing important that is strategically here is the fact that Saudi might end up providing funds to Pakistan that Pakistan is always in need of. It can help its modernization, especially in terms of defense. It can help it in technology. And this will create more pressure on India, especially on the western borders where we are neighboring Pakistan, and also, as I said, the counter-terrorism efforts that are going on. So this is something that is going to impact us security-wise also, and there will be military implications. But the second pointer is also equally important, where we need to look into the diplomatic and economic angles. When we are talking about Saudi, Saudi is our third largest oil supplier. Now, when we are talking about Saudi tilting towards Pakistan, and what goes between India and Pakistan is known to the world, in this situation, Saudi tilting towards Pakistan is a problem of energy security for us. So in this very time, when we are talking about policy, the first thing would be to further look into diversification and also keep a balanced approach towards Saudi, so we can better up our ties with Saudi in this particular scenario. So it is a problem of diplomacy, but it is the problem of cost as well, because any disruption that will take place here, it is going to cost India heavy in terms of import bill. Furthermore, when we are talking about this whole situation, it is going to be very problematic balancing that India has to do between Israel and Gulf sensitivities, where the whole of the Gulf is standing together. They are planning to come to a military bloc that is on the table. In this situation, to balance a strategic partner where we have not just trade ties but defense procurement is there, there's technology exchange is there, this has to be very well calculated and measured. And the third but most important angle is the Indian diaspora. When we are talking about more than 8 million people in this particular Gulf region, it is important to maintain not just their security, but also any turmoil or anti-India mood is going to affect their livelihoods, and it is also going to affect our remittances as well. So it is a situation where we have to look into the security angles, we have to look into the economic angles, diplomatic angles, and we have to consider our military options as well. Now coming to the main point here, that what India can do in this particular given situation. India would have to follow the route of very calibrated diplomacy, where it has to maintain exceptional ties with Saudi, and Saudi should be in the favor of maintaining a neutral stance, especially in South Asian matters. Saudi should be convinced to not enter South Asian matters in the manner of a player itself, like the way US was doing. Another important thing, balancing Israel. So we need to focus on diplomacy on both angles, where we can deepen our ties in terms of defense and tech with Israel, and deepen our ties with Saudi in terms of energy and investment. So there will be a balanced approach that will be taken in this particular scenario. India also has to consider further diversification in terms of resources. Our dependency, import dependency, is not going away anytime soon, that we are not putting all eggs in one basket. We have to ensure that there is diversification, and at the same time, while addressing all this, we have to actually deliver on the idea of self-reliance, so that this fumble that is going across the east, or it could be at any part of the globe, it should not directly trigger our economy into a downward loop. The whole idea here is that India should be able to protect its interest using diplomacy across all the camps, and should stick to the idea of self-reliance in the long term. But as I started this whole discussion on the very fact that it is not just going to impact India, this impact lies way beyond India. It is not just impacting Gulf India, but players all across the world have their eyes set there, because something or the other is going to fall out of here. So when we are talking about the wider implications, that means beyond India and Gulf, we have to understand that players like US are also an end here. So when we are talking about US, the first hit that has come, that US has lost its credibility as the Gulf protector. This has completely eroded, and there is a lot of pressure of US allies to bring in and manage the Israel-Saudi tensions. Can you tell me in the comment section which are the US allies which are present in Gulf? Let me give you a hint. When the strike has taken place, US has a very important base. Then second global player, China. China is in a winning situation here, because when we are talking about Pakistan, an all-season friend of China, and Saudi, another ally, in this situation, China has the scope to deepen energy arm ties with Saudi, and it might also rise to the occasion as a mediator because they have the cards in their hand. And then coming to an important contributor in the whole situation, Israel. Basically, the freedom of action should be curtailed, and they may seek stronger coordination at this given difficult time for Israel, not just with US but for India as well. So Israel might be looking forward to better ties. So they have a partner to incline towards in the tension-laden times that lie in front of us. Furthermore, a direct impact that could be expected would be in form of global energy and trade disruption. This is something that has been worrying the global order across. Anything going wrong or escalating in this scenario will bring in oil price spike, and this is going to disrupt again the global trade and economies. Furthermore, this will also have an effect on shipping security in the Persian Gulf. As I hinted, where the strike has taken place in Qatar, this is one of the important bases of US are located nearby. So the shipping security will also be highlighted, because major trade routes are also here itself. So if we are talking about major trade routes, then let's have a look. We are talking about Suez Canal, Red Sea, moving through here, Persian Gulf. All of these trades and movement across the Gulf, this shipping security will also be heightened. Now, in the end, my question to you, what do you think is the possible outcome of the situation that has rounded up, especially in Middle East, and where do you find India standing? Now, let me know in the comment section. That was all from my side. Thank you so much.